Hello, hello. We are going to be talking about pre-reading activities, so things that you can do before you and your students actually get into a reading. And we're going to talk a little bit about nonfiction, we're going to talk a little bit about fiction, but we're going to try and give you a couple of different activities you can do for pre-reading. And I say we because in just a second, a friend is going to come join me and we're going to talk about it. I see her come in. Here we go. Drum roll. Let's see. Oh, yes. There. Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm so glad you could join us. I'm so glad that Instagram cooperated. Sometimes it's a little finicky, so I'm glad you're here. Why don't we start with, can you introduce yourself just so people know who you are and what your specialty is?
Sure. So my name is Michelle, and I taught English as a second language for over 8 years in the elementary schools. I did 1 year in a middle school, and it was not for me. um, but that's a little bit about my educational background. And reading and writing was obviously a huge portion of teaching English language learners for me.
Yay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
If anybody is your audience who hasn't met me before, my name is Ashley, and my experience is in teaching secondary Spanish. So students whose second or third language is Spanish. And most of my experience is in the high school. I did teach middle school for a few years, but it was the, I call it the sample platter of languages. So I taught Spanish, French, Latin, and German, and I was really excited to move into a full-time Spanish position. But there we go. If you are catching the replay or if you're here with us live, if you tap up here, there's a title, and that's where you can check out both of our accounts. So if you're new or you haven't followed one or the other of us, that you can see more. Yay. All right. So let's dig into pre-reading activities. Michelle, do you want to share your first one?
Sure. So I do a lot with primary. I do thematic units, and then I'll pull books. So like this one is about colors. So I actually sometimes create them, or I'll pull them off a website like Reading A to Z, or you can find them on the internet, Emergent Readers. And to do pre-reading with my really little ones, I'll often start by reviewing sight words, and then I will have them mark in the book. So on this page, you can see I had them mark sight words in one color. I had them mark content words or words that matched the picture in another color. So they marked bird because that's what they saw in the picture. And then I also would have them trace the color word, which is the point, not the point, but the goal, right. I had them trace that in the color. So that's one way that I do pre-reading, especially with my really little ones, is we go through the book first and mark sight words and mark content words and mark vocabulary words before we even read the sentence, read the book.
So when you do that with your students, do you say like, is it like a whole class thing? Like, okay, everybody, you're going to get your pink marker and here's the sight word. Let's go find all of this sight word on that page. And then you do the content word and then you do the color?
Yeah, pretty much. But again, my whole group is usually 5 or 6 kids.
Oh, okay.
So we're sitting usually around a kidney table. And I'll say, all right, let's everybody get a color for sight words. And I'll sometimes even put the sight words like in a pocket chart behind me. So we'll review those first, especially if the students aren't completely familiar with all of them, like at the beginning of the year. And we'll review them. And then I'll say, all right, find the word see in your book and underline it, or find the word the and underline it. And we'll do all the sight words. And then we'll go back and say, okay, what do we see in the picture? Bird. Can you find the word bird on the page? And they might get confused on this page because bird and blue, they start the same. But then we have to look at the whole word. All right, let's figure this out. And so we'll go through and do that for every page. Sometimes we'll do all the sight words and then all the content words. Sometimes we'll do each page, all the sight words, content words. It just depends on the group and what level of support they need.
That makes sense. I think this would be a really good station activity too with like the secondary kids. You could give them like a list of the things you wanted them to find in their reading and then give them all the
right.
Go.
Right. So yeah, so like this would have been a book for older kids because it's a little bit more complex. And this could be one where I would say, okay, here are our vocabulary words, beach, waves, shells, and there are others. But then tell them, all right, go ahead and find those words in the book. So shells, beach, waves, and have them circle it. And again, because I'm in a small group, it's not I don't necessarily always have centers where they're working independently, but that could be something that I had them do independently, like while I'm monitoring the group. So that's a little bit, especially with the younger kids. We do a lot of, let's look at the page, what words do we see, let's circle them or underline them to get ready to read.
I like that a lot. We'll do something sometimes with my own students. I'll give them, and just a reminder for anybody who's jumping in, I'm working in it, like thinking about a secondary classroom, usually 25 to 30 students at a time. I might give them a set amount of time on the clock ahead and just say, okay, you're just going to read the text, and all of the words that you recognize or know, you're going to just underline all of the words you know. And so that way they're kind of using, it's almost like your magic finger or your pointer finger as you're following along with the text. And that way it's really easy for them to see, like, oh, not sure what this word is. Okay, keep right. Kind of giving them just like a quick skim over before we really get into it.
Right. Right. So sometimes I will, with my older kids, have them look through and then be like, all right, so what did you see in the book? To kind of help them think about what they're going to read before they read it. A picture walk is sometimes what we call it.
Yeah, I love doing something like that. I was just talking with a friend about this before too. Sometimes we use readings that go with like a video or something, and it's really nice when you can pull screen grabs from a video, because then you can use those pictures to help them kind of exactly what you're talking about, right? Is those pre-ideas by looking at the picture, what do you think is going to happen in the story? And it kind of gets them thinking about, okay, what will make sense? And then, what do I think is going to happen? That predictive kind of work.
Right. So like one of the books I printed out just to show, this is a Reading A to Z. If you guys ever, a lot of teachers use Reading A to Z. I love Reading A to Z. I think they have amazing, amazing resources. Side note, I actually used it for an interview, like sample lesson once, and I got the job. So there you go. But with this, I was thinking that same thing, that hot air balloons are not something most students are familiar with, but previewing some videos and showing some videos before reading to kind of give them an idea of hot air balloons and what to look for in the text.
That's a good idea. Especially when you really think about it, the whole concept of a hot air balloon is kind of wild.
I know, but they're really cool to see. In the city where I taught, there was actually a hot air balloon festival every year.
Cool.
So students would actually see them in the sky. So, around that time of year, we might look at this book. And, if you look this weekend, you might see hot air balloons because the festival is on Saturday and Sunday.
Cool. That's a really neat to be able to share and like tie in for real world experiences and the book that you're talking about. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we also do not always just printed books though. And I had a couple of ways to mark up texts when you can't write in them. If we thought that was a yes.
I love that. Absolutely. Especially the past year and a half where people really had to like dive into digital reading, right?
I know. So these are two books just that my son picked up at the library from the Ready to Read section. He's just coming out of kindergarten, and his reading has really taken off. So he's really been loving these types of books. But obviously, like when we preview them before he reads them, I can't write in them. So I actually have like highlight Post-it notes, so you can highlight the words. So I might have him, or if I were in the classroom, I'd have students go through and highlight the words, again, that they don't know, as opposed to highlighting all the ones they do know, because that uses a lot of Post-it notes. So using highlighter tape, they do make highlighter tape. I don't happen to have any at home, but I do have these little highlighter Post-it notes to highlight words that he might be unsure of, or things like that. So that's one way. I think I did the same in this book. Yeah. So this one, two different colors. So these are words that are tricky, load and there. And this word here is one that's got like a CBC pattern that he recognizes. So I can say, all right, highlight all your tricky words. All right, now let's look for those word families that you know, or something like that. So that's another way to highlight without actually writing in the book.
I like
Because we can't write in the library books.
they might not be happy with you.
We sometimes will get them from the library, and my son will say, somebody wrote in this one. I'll say, well, you're not supposed to do that, so you know better.
Right. Break notes. That's what
I'm not.
see through.
Yeah, they're really cool. I meant to bring them over to here, but they're still over on my desk, but that's all right. Another fun one is to laminate an empty laminating pouch, and then you can just lay it over the top of a book.
And then you right on top of it.
And then you can write on top of it. And you actually don't even need dry erase markers specifically. I actually just used Crayola markers for this. And then you just wipe it off. You got to use wet. Not even really, because it's kind of just coming off with my finger. But again, you can circle words. So for this one, the phrases I put my in those are those kind of sight word phrases that they should be familiar with. And then the what and the where. Whoops, I'm off screen. The what crayons, where in the box. And same over here, books. I'm putting what? Books, and I'm putting them where? On the shelf. And so we could go through and do that with all of the pages. And again, this is just a laminating pouch that I laminated empty. And then you just lay it over the top of the book.
I like
so again, that's another
to like keep it there so that it's not.
Yeah, I used a binder clip. You can use paper clips. You don't, if these books, this book itself is pretty flat. It's one of the first little readers. But if you're using a book that doesn't want to lay flat, yeah, a binder clip or paper clips work really well. So those are just ways to mark up a book without writing in the book.
I like that a lot. And I'm sure the librarians and media specialists really appreciate that option too. I know that you could even like send home for your parents or grown-ups. I call them grown-ups all the time. My high school students always kind of look at me and like, but it makes sense.
Yes.
Do a little list of things for grown-ups and be like, you know, if you're working on these strategies at home, here's some things that I've done, and then they can, you know, keep practicing those strategies you're working with your students. That'd be fun.
Yeah. So along with sight words, I'll frequently do vocabulary. I'm going to come back to this hot air balloon book because I teach English language learners who were reading in not their primary language, which I'm sure you experience too. Vocabulary is a big thing. So this book, again, is from Reading A to Z. It's their English language learner component, and they come with these really cute vocabulary folders with these really cute little vocabulary cards to teach, to pre-teach vocabulary. And the lesson will actually say, like, have students go through the glossary at the end and mark words they don't know or things like that. So there's like an actual, it's in the lesson to build that background and preview the vocabulary before reading.
That's handy. And you could have them work with, I mean, you could even just have them work with those cards in so many different ways. I know people do like write the room activities where you like post those kind of cards and students look at them and use them to complete an activity ahead of time, stuff like that.
Yeah. The program will come with, it actually does come with, like, some of them are blank, so then they have to label the card, or they have just the word and then the student has to draw a picture of what the word is, or they'll have activity sheets where they have to use it in a sentence, or they have a sentence with blanks and you have to decide which word fits in them. So it's a really good program for building vocabulary.
That's really handy. And then you could even, like, once you have the students have their cards all done, you could use them for like games, right? You can cut them in half and use them for memory or different.
Memory is one of my favorite games to play with vocabulary.
Same. All those times I get students who haven't played it before and I'm like, you're 15, you've never played memory?
I'm teaching my son early. So you flip over 2 cards and you look, and then you flip them back. Like, because sometimes kids will flip it over and then they'll peek and be like, oh, it doesn't match. No, you have to flip it over so everyone else can see, so we can remember where it is.
I had one group of students who were playing it on like, I told them that we're playing on like extra challenge difficulty mode because they were doing, so they'd flip them over, everybody would look, they'd flip them back, and then their group scrambled them all every time. I was like,
That makes things hard.
I was like, okay, so we've got the next level of difficulty for memory happening over in this corner. I don't know who taught them how to play, but they meant business.
Right. That's not even memory. That's just
luck.
Good luck.
Let's play luck match.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of what I do with pre-reading at the elementary school level with English language learners.
I love those things. We have some overlap and some things in common. I have a few that I was going to share too that I like. I'm a big fan of writing my lists down ahead of time so I don't forget anything. So we kind of talked a little bit about using pictures. So I'm going to start with that one. One of the ones that I have used in the past, especially with stories that are illustrated. So a lot of the readings that I use for my students maybe don't come with a picture on every single page, or are maybe like a pretty good amount of text, a couple pictures, like, not a ton of images, but anytime that I have a text that has pictures, it's kind of fun to, okay, here's the title, here are some pictures. What do you think this is going to be about? And so that kind of like predictive brainstorming thing, right, helps them kind of figure out what kind of vocabulary we're going to see, especially what we were talking about doing thematic units. We often do units too. And so like, okay, they already kind of have these words and this kind of context happening in the lesson. So if you can give them that reading and the pictures, then they're like, okay, this is what I think this is going to be about, and give them just a little bit of time to brainstorm. And you can do that like individually or in small groups, or just as a whole class with like writing down guesses on the board kind of deal, like just very simple, very quick. And you could even do that with like, if there aren't any pictures, sometimes in like our heavier nonfiction or like news article kind of text we'll use, they'll have a lot of headings. So they might have the big title and then like, little page breaks kind of. And so we'll pull out all of the headings and say, okay, what do you think this is going to be about if you see this, 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 and this, and give them some chances to like brainstorm in a group. I usually like them to do the brainstorming thing in a small group because then it doesn't make them feel like, I don't know, put on the spot to come up with on their own. And sometimes in the big group as a whole class, they're like too shy to share at first. So that small group environment is really nice for pre-reading activities.
Sometimes I'll do with the brainstormings, I'll give students Post-it notes of 2 colors and say, all right, what's one thing you know about the topic we're about to read about, and what's a question that you have? And then they write those down, and then we can put them on like the poster or the board or wherever we're gathering for a whole group. And that kind of relieves some of the pressure of being on the spot, but then they're still able to participate. So Post-it notes.
I love that.
Is how I do it.
That kind of like ties into one of my other ones that I was going to recommend is the know, want to know, and learned kind of graphic organizer. I'm sure you've seen that before. It was the same thing in Post-its, right? Is what's something you know about this? What's something you're wondering or that you're not sure about? And then after, so I guess moving out of the pre-reading realm, sorry everyone. After we've read it, what's something you learned about it? And yeah, you could do it like on the Post-it notes like you were mentioning, or sometimes I just do a graphic organizer, or even I won't call myself lazy, but how about efficient?
There you go.
I'm going to take out a sheet of paper and draw 2 lines. KWL.
Right. Yes, we use KWLs a lot with primary learning. Sometimes I'll do it as an actual like KWL chart with the lines, but a lot of times it's just, all right, tell me the things that you know about this, and then we'll flip it over and be like, all right, now what questions do you have? And then we'll come back and do, all right, did we answer any of the questions that we had? Where can we look for more information? And what other things did we learn we didn't know before?
I love it.
So yeah.
I really like to do it with especially like cultural or historical celebrations, because sometimes our students have like these preconceived ideas that they think they know. And it's nice to kind of just like, hey, here's our brainstorming, and then we go look at what they were wondering, and then we look at the actual information and we say, okay, what are the things that we thought we knew that maybe weren't as accurate as the actual
Right.
the actual reality of that celebration,
Right.
that practice. So another one that's kind of fun, it's kind of on the same idea, and I think your sticky note would be a really good way to do this too, is agree and disagree with opinions on a topic. So if you are doing, well, I mean, any topic, right? You come up with 5 or 6 opinions about said topic, and then you have to have your students agree or disagree. And I'm usually, this is one of my favorite ones to get students moving when we pre-read an activity. So I might put a statement up on the board or up on the screen, and this side of the room is agree, and that side of the room is disagree, and they have to pick one. So
Right.
I think that,
I've seen in classrooms with whole groups 4 corners
yes.
where each corner represents a favorite or an answer that they like. So they'll move to the 4 corners. I actually taught in a classroom which was not square. I don't even know. It was like 1, 2, 3. It was like an irregular hexagon, maybe even like 7 sides. It was really weird. So I couldn't do 4 corners. But yeah, I've seen the 4 corners as well, along with agree and disagree.
Just to give them some more options. I really like
Yeah,
making sure that they have to move somewhere so that they're making a choice somehow. Because I'll get students to be like,
right.
I'm like, one or the other. Or, and when we were talking about using pictures with predictive text, it's nice to do that too, right? You could post the picture or hold up the picture or, tell everybody to go to that picture and then say, okay, if you think this is going to happen, go over there. Or
Right.
you can do it with multiple options too. And it's kind of a way to get the students hooked on the story before it even happens, right? So if, all of a sudden you have high school students being like, I bet, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, yeah. I have 2 corners with a middle ground. I like the middle ground. I would want to know, what is your middle ground for? That's a comment that we had. So it says, I have 2 corners with a middle ground. My question is, what do you have them do in the middle ground? If it's agree, disagree, like, or what? You'll have to tell us more. Okay, so let's see. Who was the last one? No one to know. Oh, the last one is probably the most simple. It's probably the most like the ones that you shared to start with. It's marking up the text. And it's kind of like I shared how sometimes I'll have students read and underline every word they know. Sometimes I just do the opposite. I give them, I don't know, a set amount of time depending on how long the reading is. And I have them circle any words they're unfamiliar with. And I don't usually do that right away at the beginning of a unit. But if it's a reading, like maybe we're 3 or 4 days into a unit, they've been kind of encountering the words. If we're doing embedded readings, they'll do, like if we've done short version, medium version, maybe we're on the longest version at this point. So that way it's not like, I really don't know any of these words, I don't use that strategy with a reading that's like gonna be really challenging for them. But if I know there's a few curveballs that they might need some support on, I just give them some time to skim, and I have them circle any words that they're not sure about. And then usually what I do is I will project the reading on the screen, or if you have a dot cam, this is really handy for that. You just say, okay, first paragraph, anything this first line, anything this second line. And I literally just go line by line. And as we finish, I'll read the whole thing for them again. And maybe I'll, like, if there was one that we clarified, I'll just remind as I'm reading, like, remember this was this, before we get into any of the, like, during reading activities. Oh, here we go. We got our answer. The middle ground is students who agree or disagree with both or have their own unique response.
I like the idea of making them back up why they aren't going one or the other.
I do too.
So that way it's not just a safe, right. I'm just going to sit here because that way I don't have to move. That's good.
Using middle ground.
Someone commented that students keep a personal list of unknown words and then yes to them. I'm not sure what that means. Yes to them.
Yes.
Individual test.
Maybe test.
And then test. Maybe test is the word.
Individually
on these words.
Test them. I like that too. It's kind of like a self-formed dictionary.
Right.
Or
right.
is probably a better word for that. I question about that, just because you're here and live with us. How often do you test them on those words individually? Is it like once a chapter? Is it once every reading? Is it like once a semester? How big do you let their list get before you are like checking in on them? And yeah, it is test. Okay.
Yeah. So I usually do, I don't do anything, especially with the little kids, I don't do anything as formal as a test, like a written exam or a written, but we will, at the end of a unit, they have to put them into a dictionary. They actually keep a dictionary of all the words we've done. And so they'll have to be able to say what the word, so I'll give them the picture, just a little picture card, and they'll have to know what it is in order to be able to put it in their dictionary, because they'll have to be able to find that word um, in the dictionary in order to be able to put the picture with the word. And I also do it, I mean, we use that vocabulary in context throughout the unit. So a lot with ESL is observational, as far as, are they able to use the word correctly? So if we're doing like a fill in the blanks activity, or if we're doing a like a memory or a crossword or puzzle, then I'll be able to see if if they can read the crossword clue but not know the word, then I know that we're missing something. Yeah. Something like that.
Makes sense. We started doing like a so it was really common for me when I was in a larger department, right, taught with textbooks. All of the textbooks came with a vocabulary list for every chapter. One thing we started doing was, here's your vocabulary list of like things that we're all going to talk about. And then at the bottom of the vocabulary list, I would just give them a little bit of space that says like, I don't know, extra words or additional words or something like that. And I always made this big deal about like, that's where you add words that are for you, right? So, you know, in the hobbies unit, we'd always have a kid who had a hobby or had something that they did that wasn't on the vocab list because, like, you know, right. We were using textbooks from before my students were born. So some of their activities weren't even filled yet, like stuff like that. And then our assessments, when we were writing assessments, we started to use a rubric where like the tippity top, like exceeding expectations includes using additional vocabulary, or I can't remember the exact phrasing of it, but basically showing that they knew more than just like the bare minimum.
Right.
And so that was a good space for them to use some of those extra words that were a little bit more personal and a little bit more tied to what they cared about, and show us like, yeah, I things in context in a way that makes sense and somebody can understand when I use them. So right. Our update from the person who mentioned the personal list. So their personal list is about 25 words. They keep the page and then use it as part of their conversation test with me. It's usually about once per quarter. I like that they're like kind of doing it with them throughout. Oh, awesome.
I remember doing Spanish conversation tests. They're taking me back to high school there.
Whoosh, flashback happening.
Actually, I actually took French for most of college and then switched, or most of high school and then switched to Spanish. But either way, I'm going back to conversation tests.
Giving you those. Well, if anybody is watching and still has any questions about pre-reading activities or any things that you do that you want to share, now is a great time. Just drop them in the comments and let us know either A, what questions you have about pre-reading activities, or B, hey, here's the pre-reading that I'd like to share. Please go ahead and comment. Let us know. And if you're watching and you just kind of came in or you missed the beginning of this, I just wanted to remind you that I'm Ashley and this is Michelle. And up here you can tap the title and you can check out either or both of our accounts. So if you didn't know me or if you didn't know her, that is where you can see more from us. And I think we're good on questions. I think I didn't see any more. Did you catch any?
I don't see any more, no.
Okay. Phew. All right. So then for those of you who are coming in late or who you maybe missed the beginning of this, I just wanted to let you know that I will be saving this replay to my IGTV. So if you missed the first part of this or came in or whatever, hopped in and out because, you know, middle of the day, some things are hard. So letting you know that that replay will be available. Michelle, did you have anything else you wanted to add or anything else you wanted to share with them before we go?
I don't think so. Just thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this. And it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. I really liked that. This is going to sound silly, but I love being able to see things. So I was really appreciative of you having your books printed with your examples. It really helped me see like, oh, that could be a good way to have my students do that, especially in stations. I love stations, but I don't get into them very often. So some of your small group ideas that you shared, I think, are going to be very helpful. Oh, there we got a couple comments saying thank you, thanks both. Vocab Development Live, yay! Did. Lots of great ideas shared here. Friends, if you like that, we would both love it if you would share this with friends. So I'll share this to my IGTV. The replay will be available, and then you can click the little paper airplane button, and you can share that to anyone who you think might also benefit from this, because right, that's why we did it, is to help.
Yes.
All right, well, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let all of you guys watching go. Thank you so much for coming live with us. If you're catching the replay and if you have questions, feel free to ask them. Have a great rest of
Yeah. Bye.